Trying to get my thing on right now. Oh, that sounded weird. I'm in a hotel room trying to make my show work, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of weird stuff going on. Starting the show a little late, but it happens. And I hope it gets through, and we'll see. Don't know, the bit rate's kinda stinky, but I've seen worse in my time. Hey, we're gonna try and do a show. Let's see if it works. Are you there? Can I see anybody in the chat, or will it take a bloody long time? Oh no, I don't know. It might be a little while. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry that I made you wait, but I forgot my power adapter. Hello, Ireland. Hello. Hello, Ireland. Hello. That's going to be my new Irish Pro theme song. Hooray. Dooby dooby doo. This is enough of a theme song for anybody that wants to watch it just hanging about and trying to make stuff work. My mic failed and it didn't work either. And I've only got one plug on my computer. What am I going to do? I'm going to try and have some freeze-dried blueberries while I do my show. You can hear it in the background. Crunchy crunch. They're actually quite delicious. Wouldn't you like a bunch? All right. Honestly, enough fooling around. Let's get serious about having fun. I'm having dried blueberries because I have not eaten all day. Man. Oh. Shevitz. Let me show you what working too hard to make a show happen looks like. By the way, if I'm way behind the chat today, as far as referencing what you guys are talking about and stuff, I'm gonna, oh yay. I'm gonna apologize. Michael, thank you. Right out of the gate. Because I'm on hotel Wi-Fi, and God knows if any of this is gonna amount to anything. So I left my power brick for my my laptop at home. It just uses a regular USB-C. 65 watt, so technically 64, but a 65 will handle it usually if it's, lower. And so I run down to, there's an electronics store right down the street from the hotel. So I'm like, they'll have something. No, they won't. And Raphael, thank you. What they had was a one that would work if you plugged it into your car or something else, I suppose. But either way, Moon River, they had the Moon River plug, which is enough wattage to run my laptop. However, I can't do the show from the car outside because A, it's San Francisco and there is no parking. And it's nuts. And I mean, whatever. So I was like, you don't happen to have something that converts this into a plug, do you? And sure enough, he did. And so, now, sit down, kids. It's time for the birds and the bees. I got both of them. And technically speaking, there was nothing about this that shouldn't work. And yet, for the laptop just would not charge off of it. It just would not allow for it. And I'm sorry if I'm looking up. Hold on, I'll move the screen down on this so I'm not forced to look above at my own face because I'll find it too distracting. But let's see, am I in the right? Yes, okay. Plugged it in, and all it did was make my laptop go blunk, 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 over and over and over. So apologies for the late start. On the upside, while I was wandering around, they do have a Trader Joe's nearby, so I was able to get myself some truly San Francisco hippie beverage. Basically drinking shredded grass and eating dried blueberries. Now, freeze-dried blueberries, nasty. Regular dried blueberries, fantastic. However, I'm going to gum up my whole laptop touching it. I just know it. But anyways, now you're all caught up. Welcome to the show. I have a 8 o'clock show tonight. So let's get on with the madness. There's so much. Where do we go first to find just the truly disgusting world we live in? You know, we have a little drive-by disgusting in our lives. You know what I mean? We have people who are in the industry or that I'm in or in politics or whatever that are like gross on a level where they just go, well, that's unfortunate, and it's a short-term thing. Or they kind of come and go. They do something so awful they get broomed. And then there are these people who are just perennial scumbags. And thank you, Michael. That brings us to not only to Matt Gaetz, whose girlfriend has just essentially, in the parlance of old 80s movies, turned state's evidence. She effectively got immunity for cooperating with prosecutors in the sex trafficking part of the criminal case that is being brought against Matt Gaetz by the prosecutor down there through Joel Greenberg. So Joel Greenberg's been given all this, extra info and to try to lower his sentence. And Matt Gaetz is his biggest goose that he can give up. And meanwhile, Matt's girlfriend is now, I have to say, what do you have to give up? What do you have to present to prosecutors when you are part of a sex trafficking investigation? Just the phrasing on it is horrifying. They're on you for this. This is a real case, and they present evidence to you that, hey, guess what? You're going down for this if you don't give us something. Oh my gosh, look at that. Czar 3, are those from Zanzibar? I don't know what a czar is on here. It seems good though. Thank you. Right? So, to me, the fact that this dude will show his face anywhere is in and of itself friggin' amazing. So let's see what he has to say now.
Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by.
Oh, by the way, Joey Pags over here, which of course Joe Pags sounds like something like you'd see a doctor for. Doc, I got a case of Joe Pags. You know what I mean? He does this show, and interestingly enough, even though he shows it on Rumble, I don't know necessarily that this guy is on YouTube anymore, but he is on Twitch. And to my Twitch friends out there, this might show up occasionally in your possibilities, in your IRL or your just chatting stuff, rando, because their algorithm is just categorical. And numbers. Whoever's watching the most, whatever time of the day, right? They're really just like monkey branching your eyeballs, trying to make you grab one before you let go of the last one, right? So he's on there. Hi, everybody. Hello and hi. And I'm waving at you. I can see the chat over to my side and I can, hello. Yeah, it's Joey Pags over here. Fantastic.
Really glad to have back District 1 Republican in the great state of Florida. It is the firebrand himself. It's Matt Gaetz. Matt, how are you?
Why'd you call him the firebrand? Oh, because that's the name of his show. And the word is going by in the back. It's kind of hard to shake it. I don't know what would make him a firebrand. Also, firebrand is negative. I'm just saying. That's what they do to burn an insignia into cattle or slaves. It's a terrible thing. A firebrand... It is like, what would that be, a laser cutter?
Oh, great to be back with you, Joe. And I was just reflecting, you look a lot more clean cut than usual. Usually, like, the Joe Pags experience includes, like, that tough, like, goatee. That's or right. Sometimes, like, the wild hair. But something must be going on where you're...
Yeah, you got new plugs, it looks like. That's what I'm going to go with. That's what that looks like. I mean, That looks like it's stapled on.
You've got it all tidied up. This great.
You know why, Matt? Because you were on the way, and I got to make it look good for the firebrand, and I just.
Ugh, gross. This is gross. It's like when you walk in, like you have somebody you don't know very well that you're like, yeah, I'll hang out with him, and then you go and he introduces you to somebody you don't know at all, and both of them start talking in this kind of douchey vernacular that you're like, oh God, all this guy's friends are assholes. Jesus Christ, am I an asshole?
TV. That had nothing to do with it, though. It had to do with this interview. Matt, I got to ask you, man. I'm a huge supporter. I love your fight. I love that you don't back down. But the left has.
Yeah, you do not back down. Like when most people, like if someone caught them dosing their drink, they wouldn't. They would back down. Not
to be saying this. They have to be. What the hell do we have to do to Matt Gaetz to make him go away? What?
No. We're not. I think the prosecutor is having that question right now. I don't worry about it. I'm one of the folks that I'm not in his district, and he's not on any committees making any real decisions in the government. So he's basically just a loud political gadfly that's barfing all over everything he touches. So I don't give a shit if he's in the Republican Party for the next 10 years. But the reality is because of the shit he's done, he's got bigger fish to fry.
Why won't you go away? I mean, lesser people with lesser backbone, Matt, would have been out of the spotlight immediately and hiding in the background. You're not.
Yeah, I guess the rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated. Right. I was greatly inspired during the presidency of Donald Trump to never
admit when you've committed a crime and just make it everyone else's problem until it absolutely crashes down on your head. I was inspired by the total lack of accountability this man had faced in his life just by being a loud asshole.
Let the process be the punishment. Donald Trump was willing our economy out of the doldrums to provide people.
The doldrums. That's what it was. Our economy was bored.
Success and higher wages and ambition.
No. You're thinking of last year when he was no longer president.
And hope.
Wages.
All the while, he was being accused by the Department of Justice, the Mueller team, Democrats, even some Republicans, of being an agent of the Russian Federation.
No. No one, by the way, no one accused him of being an agent. A useful idiot, sure. A compromised sucker is really what most of us thought, right, chat? I mean, you're Vladimir Putin. You were in the KGB, then the FSB, GRU, whatever their nickname, their acronym for it is now. And you trained your whole life. You're a psychotic Russian pro-Soviet patriot, and you're going to go out and recruit people, the highest level insiders you can find, and also some dopes that you can keep on a leash. Which category do you think Donald Trump is really in? Even if you're a fan. Honestly, for real, which category? Dope on a leash or super spy? Okay.
Right.
And I saw the way he brought just a can-do spirit and a will to...
Yeah, can do. Afghanistan. I mean, that wall is awesome. And that it's just keeping everybody out. We don't even need a CBP anymore. I don't know what ICE is doing, man. Got that sweet friggin' wall.
Public service.
Thank you, Angela.
Honestly, that'll inspire me my entire life. So I know they're doing their very best to try to smear me and lie about me, but here we are, fighting every day for the great folks in the country. And honestly, there's a lot still to battle over for the success of our people. I see a Democrat...
Our people. It's always weird when these assholes say things like, our country, our people, and they don't say Americans or America. It's kind of telling. It's like they actively avoid it. Do you ever notice that?
Party that is embracing these policies that crush our economy, drive inflation. They have launched a war on work that is unprecedented.
A war on work? Oh, I see. Like the war on poverty which actually led to more poverty, or the war on drugs, which actually led to more drugs. And the Democrats, I guess, finally realized, let's declare a war on jobs, on employment, and it'll be everywhere. Used to be hard to find a job. Now there's one on every street corner. I see what they did there.
Paying people to stay home, having...
No. Paying people because they have to stay home until they don't have to stay home. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know he's from Florida. He runs in the odd maggot circles, and he's probably not privy to the idea that his fellow Republicans, who he calls establishment Republicans or rhinos, are apparently killing off his entire caucus rather than expunge them through debate.
Vaccine mandates that limit people's ability to contribute to our economic system.
Yes, through coffin sales and medical bills, lung transplants. Think of all that law. Why, Joe Biden? Why are you leaving all that money on the table? The funeral parlor industry must have you wrapped around its pinky.
So I've got more piss and vinegar than ever.
He's been trying to cure COVID using the only two methods he knows how. Just pouring vinegar into his mouth and then peeing into it. If anybody has a I pee in my own mouth face, it's Matt Gaetz. Piss and vinegar. And that's how he's going to stop COVID.
And I love coming to work every day and battling for this great country's future.
And we love the battle. We love that you're out there in front, Matt. It's Matt Gaetz, District 1 Republican, the great state of Florida. Let me get this out of the way because I want to get into some other stuff that I feel is more important. The left media is reporting that some ex-girlfriend or something got
Oh, you're actually going to bring it up, Joey. Look at his face. Now, I got news for you. Anybody who is in the public eye or has ever been in the public eye or knows anybody who's in the public eye, if you're going to go on the absolute ass polyp of the internet shows like Joey Pag's show, you're not on CNN, you're not on Tucker doing your, you get your magical apology segment, right, that he gives you where you can really cover your ass. But you're on you're off the deep end. You know, you're in the side sewer pipes that have been welded shut. You don't want that guy throwing shit at you. You don't want that guy. That's not where you bring up your cleanup message. You know what I mean? You don't go on Joey Pags to rehabilitate your image. You go because he'll just blow smoke up your ass, and then you can, stack that like cordwood.
Community. She's going to talk to the grand jury, and the reporters aren't reporting the story. Now, you've come on my show many times. You said, this didn't happen. I dare them to show proof. The guy who actually tried to blackmail your family is admitting it. He's going to go to...
Bullshit. They didn't blackmail him. They offered to help in exchange for organizing this big bullshit thing. They needed money to get this dude out of Iran, who's already dead, more than likely. And they wanted $25 million to do it. So they went to his dad and went, hey, you give us that money, we'll help him out. They didn't blackmail him. We went through this bullshit. Like he brought this up. Remember when he brought that shit up on Tucker? I'm being blackmailed. That whole story. Fucking hell.
Jail. But the way the reporters in the media, the left media that hate you, are reporting this and that could mean...
No, and for the record, I don't hate Matt Gaetz. I hate rapists. I hate grown-ass men who would sex traffic a 17-year-old. I hate guys who get dope underage girls so that they can convince them to have sex with them. You can make the decision whether those two things overlap.
So they're saying what happened. She got immunity or so she gets to talk to them, whatever. But then they say, and this could mean it's the next step to prosecute. Could mean it's the next step to charging him. Matt, that's irresponsible. It's not really journalism. It's somebody out to get Matt Gaetz pretending to be a reporter or a journalist. But how do you let that go off your back? You've got to pay attention to that.
Yeah. How do you can you imagine if crowds were yelling lock him up about Matt Gaetz without, actual official charges being... Can you imagine how outlandish it would be for people to speculate or insist that you should... I'm glad that Matt and Joey especially will make sure to call out Republicans whenever they
There
do.
really is a grand jury, and they really are investigating something.
Well, I don't know what I don't know. What I can say
He doesn't know what he does know.
is that there's only been one charge, and it was a charge against the people who were trying to extort me on a pile of lies. There's only been one conviction.
By the way, no one was ever trying to extort him. For the record, that's all bullshit. This is just genuine bullshit. They were trying to get money out of other people. They can't offer the services of the DOJ in exchange for money. That's what they got busted for. They didn't fucking blackmail this asshole. And again, what can they extort you with? Isn't the admission that you can be extorted or blackmailed admission that there's blackmailable stuff about you?
And it was a guilty plea of the man who was trying to shake my family down for $25 million.
He was trying to shake them down. He was trying to, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
And oddly, he was trying to shake my family down to try to execute a strategy that Robert Mueller had brought to a Russian oligarch back when Robert Mueller was the director of the FBI. So it sort of feels like a deep state Mad Lib. Look, I think there are a lot of Americans who are rightly concerned about politicization at the Department of Justice. And not just under Merrick Garland. Frankly, even under Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's weird how consistently it doesn't seem to matter who's in there. These guys they're like a dog with a bone. You start breaking the law and trafficking 17-year-olds across state line, they get all like wound up about it. Don't they understand party loyalty?
We saw a DOJ that was less interested in finding the truth and investigating crimes and more interested in becoming the political enforcement wing of the political left in this country. You know, we just had Martin Luther King Day, and I recall reading...
Oh, no. Dude, do not.
All of these just horrific stories of how J. Edgar Hoover would use the national security apparatus to try to target politics he didn't like. Now, that was back when the FBI and DOJ were right-wing, and they targeted people who they thought were left-wing provokers.
Uh-huh. And we fixed that, and now there's a lot of checks and balances inside the very system you're talking about to make sure those same things don't happen again. And still, you're on the radar. That's strange. I can't imagine why. Why would they?
Now we see a DOJ and an FBI, no matter who the president is, that is really leaned into leftist politics. So I don't.
Leftist politics. Dude, they're not trying to give you Medicare. Do you think he looks out the window and across the street on a bench is Bernie Sanders in his coat with his mittens and his mask on, just haunting him?
What they're up to. I do know that we got important work here in the Congress, and that the things.
No, you don't. He's not writing bills or putting anything forward. He votes for his district, and then he fucks around and makes money the rest of the time for the caucus and for himself.
I've been accused of are verifiably false.
No, they aren't. That's just ridiculous. First of all, if they're verifiably false, then there was a 17-year-old. You were in her presence. You didn't fly her to Georgia. There's people who watched you together. You either had sex and she wasn't on drugs, or she was on drugs and you didn't have sex. Or none of her, all the above, but that person was somewhere else and it was a totally different 17-year-old. Or she wasn't even 17-year-old. The doped girl I took over state lines was in her 20s, Joey. Like, what? First of all, you cannot prove a negative. So the problem he has is if he's got to say, he circled the wagons with whoever is supporting him, and he's just figuring they're not going to break, even though his buddy turned him over. And so did his ex-girlfriend.
As I sit here and chat with you, Joe, I got fewer accusers than Joe Biden.
That's true.
I mean, there's an actual human being who's accused Joe Biden of
Oh, wow. So the woman that's accusing you isn't an actual human being? Nice.
wrongdoing.
Right.
No one has done that as it relates to any of my conduct. So I do kind of let it just go off my back like the water off of a duck.
And again, Matt, I appreciate you. You're being strong and fighting hard for America and for freedom. The left media, if they're going to talk about you, though, is always going to be negative. And I'm glad that you've got the foundation to deal with it. It's Matt Gaetz, District 1 Republican, the great state of Florida. You talked about the turnabout from the Department of Justice back then to what they're doing.
By the way, he's really good at resets. This Joey Pags character. I would recommend you like and subscribe, and don't forget to. If you're on Twitch, subscribe as well, and share the show. And thank you very much. See what I did there? Oops, I got to go over here. Hold on.
Now, isn't there any way, Matt, we can depoliticize the Department of Justice? Shouldn't they just enforce the laws? Shouldn't they just go by the book? Why is there any political activist at all holding a job in the FBI or the DOJ?
There aren't. You're presuming they are, because this asshole has convinced you that he has no criminal liability in this situation. You're taking his word for it. So you're not only giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's not guilty in this situation, but you're also giving him the benefit of the doubt that this is a witch hunt that apparently under two administrations, both one that was completely in his favor and one that's on the opposite end of the legal spectrum, or the political spectrum from him. Both of them have it out for this asshole. That's what we're supposed to believe. The world revolves around people who just want to persecute Matt Gaetz because why? For real. The fuck for? MTG earns a shit ton more money. If they were going to throw if they're going to manufacture something to go after somebody, it'd be her. Sorry, but part of this is Matt Gaetz just isn't that fucking important. He hasn't been for a while.
Oh, can't we do something about it?
We might have to get him outside of the beltway of Washington, D.C. Yeah, I think most of...
Dude, you ran for Congress to go to Washington to represent your state. The Beltway is full of people from all the states. That's just code for fuck the rest of America.
Americans acknowledge that agencies in Washington typically want to grow their power. There's no...
It depends. Depends. Because on a legal front, a lot of times what he would consider growing their power is more finely, bifurcating the law so that they can, so that assholes like him can't wiggle around it. And they've done that for years. So that's why he finds himself in so much hot water, potentially with the Joel Greenberg stuff and with his ex-girlfriend, is because he's threading these little needles with I'll Venmo her the money and call it tuition. What? They don't know.
In an agency, whether it's the Department of Labor or the EPA, saying, gosh, I wonder if we had less of a profile, less of a portfolio. And the way agencies grow is typically by helping their friends and punishing their enemies and their critics.
The agricultural department is just out of fucking control. And don't get me started on the Department of Transportation. The guys who run that place, it's like the Gotti family.
And a lot of folks want to believe that the Department of Justice is somehow exempt from this. They're above it. They don't do the normal politics that you might see at the Department of Education pushing critical race theory, or Department of Labor pushing union policy. But the reality is they're not just a part of that ecosystem. In many circumstances, they are the worst actors.
Yeah, that's what it is. Law enforcement is the problem in this country. Thank you, Matt. And finally for bringing that up. I'm sorry, I don't have my satire graphic. What the fuck? How am I gonna... All right, hold on one second. Let's see. Let's go do this. We'll do no background. Do this. Satire. There we go. And then scroll this way up like that. And then... let's see, make this color this red. There we go. And then have a shadow effect on it. That'll be nice. And then I'll add that to the screen. And then I will scroll this up real quick. Oh, wait. Why is it? Oh, it's got to be above me. I see. How's it behind the... Okay. Quit. Why is it behind the camera? Oh, well. What am I going to do? So I'll keep this in case I need it. Hold on.
I mean, we just had a circumstance where the FBI wouldn't classify the motive of a political radical Islamist who went into a synagogue, took hostages, demanding the release of someone who was colloquially referred to as Lady Al-Qaeda.
Right.
So they couldn't figure that.
No, they just didn't assign terrorism to it, as opposed to him trying to use it was a hostage taking situation, and he ended up getting killed. So there's no way of knowing if he was going to kill all those people and make it an act of violence, like go out himself and take those people with him. So they withheld that in case people who helped him could be legally liable, and you don't want to dirty up the jury pool too much if you have to go after multiple people like that. Ultimately, they got all the information that they needed after looking into it, as opposed to just jumping to their personal belief that he was somehow a terrorist, because, like I said, it's easy to say shit on Twitter. There's no legal ramification.
Motive out there to say it was
By the way, this asshole is a lawyer, or was.
Determined, yet when there was a garage pull rope in a NASCAR driver's garage, they had to deploy more than a dozen agents.
To determine. They determined it wasn't. Isn't that what you'd want to do? See, the thing is, if you would have a case, if they went and looked at that pull rope and they came to the conclusion that it was indeed a noose and that it was indeed meant to terrorize him, and in spite of the reality that was there before he was even assigned to that bay, and that they all had them. It's, and it was rather big because it's NASCAR. And if hints of NASCAR being that racist hung around, it would fuck business. So NASCAR itself said, go after this and figure it out, because we don't want this, hanging around our necks.
Parents spoke out against critical race theory.
Nobody gives a shit if you speak out about critical race theory or fucking vaccinations. It's when you phone in death threats, dum-dum.
Against mandates in schools, they were labeled domestic terrorists.
No, they were labeled domestic terrorists if they live in the country, they are American citizens, and they were terrorizing their fellow citizens by threatening them with death and dismemberment.
So I do think that the rot...
I disagree with that statement as well. I do not believe he actually thinks. I think he contrives.
Runs very deep at many of these agencies, and the DOJ isn't exempt. There have been more and more calls for Republicans to lay out a plan to oversee and reform the FBI.
Yeah, by all the ones who are getting busted for criminality. Yeah, and it's amazing how many people have been calling for reforms, from former House Speaker Dennis Hastert back then, and all the way up to Donald Trump and his entire family, and me, Joey. I've been calling for it.
National security apparatus, the Department of...
Yeah, everybody who's facing charges is calling for them to restructure the entire FBI.
Justice. Congressman Jim Jordan is slated to be the...
Oh, yeah. Well, I think he just wants to pass the Look the Other Way Act. That's the Jim Jordan bill that will make sure that law enforcement, that congressional members can dictate to law enforcement which crimes they go after and which ones they just promise not to talk about. Right, Jim?
Next chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, if we take power, he is committed publicly on my podcast Firebrand to create an oversight and investigations subcommittee of the Judiciary.
Oh, a subcommittee. There you go. Yeah, way to take action.
Committee, and I plan to chair it, and I plan to get answers, and I plan to drive reforms there, because the American people...
Yeah, you're not going to chair it. You don't have seniority. Even if they do form it, he's not going to fucking chair the thing.
Do deserve law enforcement.
They're not going to put you in charge of it when you have these charges hanging over your fucking head, dum-dum. They're from Florida. It's not even the DOJ. Good Lord.
That investigates crimes and that doesn't try to pervert the law.
You might want to choose your words more carefully. Pervert.
go after political movements or political actors that they fear, whether they are in Congress or in the school boards throughout our great nation.
You know, and that attack on the synagogue happened here in Texas. The guy was live streaming it as he was holding people hostage on the Sabbath at that synagogue, and on the live stream he's yelling religious things. And you're right, the FBI says, well, we see no tie to religion here.
That's not what they said. Again, this fucking... does anybody even care to quote directly or whatever? Because the idea is that if they don't call it by the jargon point that you want it to, like this just like goes back to like... they won't even say radical Islam anymore. Remember that nonsense? That whole friggin' argument? If they don't use your jargon, doesn't mean they're talking about it. And so you can't, because they're not using your jargon, essentially put words in their mouth.
And then the AP reports, the FBI says, this has nothing to do with it being a synagogue or that the people are Jewish.
No, it didn't. No, they did not. They said he might have taken them hostage because of their evaluation to America in his mind and in the mind of the woman that he was trying to get out. In that there is this idea that Jews are more valued in the United States in the sort of Hamas mentality around certain people. They believe that America is fundamentally, we're incapable of doing anything to Jewish people, and so we hold them up to sort of royal status. Now, Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein might want to have a word, but they believe this. And so he believed that these people would be what we value most in terms of who he could either kill or take hostage to get her out. And it's in line with her belief systems. But she's in there for trying to kill or killing American soldiers, not attacks in Israel. So they don't know that immediately. Also, lunatic. He's a crazy person. It might have been a little while before they were able to hash out exactly why he did it, because he was yelling a bunch of shit.
Which is ridiculous. Of course it is. The woman that he wanted to get released was known as Lady Al-Qaeda, yes, but also known as Lady Anti-Semite. So,
was she? Voulez-vous un Jew avec moi ce soir? Lady Anti-Semite. Really? That's Madam Anti-Semite to you. No, the fuck she wasn't. Who has that as the name? Lady Al-Qaeda was what they were calling her. Now you're just making shit up.
At the end of the day, they were trying to hide it to make a situation look better when I just want them to be the Department of Justice.
They were not. They were talking about what they knew for sure versus what they might think versus what they might find out. And at a press conference on those kind of things, you want to talk about what you know for sure. And then 2 days later, they come out and change what they said. Well, 2 days later, they had more information about this fucking guy.
I just want the media to be really fair reporters, and they're not. It's District 1 Republican in the great state of Florida. It's Matt Gaetz. Firebranded is his book. Go and get it. Firebranded is his podcast. Go and watch it. He's got Jim Jordan on there all the time.
Sorry, why are you helping him sell his book? I thought you wanted reporters to just report.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is...
She's had him in the fridge since 2018.
Get a second rack, ended up paying for.
Yes, we damaged the supply chain. That's what we damaged the supply. Damaged the supply chain. What the fuck does that sentence even mean?
And that limit the buying power of consumers.
Sound? What was the sound? that weird? Well, the audio got weird? Oh, there's no sound from them.
Joe, I really hope you didn't eat that rack of ribs. You should probably keep it because the ribs may actually hold their value better than the American dollar.
Right.
Oh, it seems like it's louder all of a sudden or something's weird. Sorry, guys. Hold on.
That you have.
Wait.
Huh. Is that better at all? It's good?
That this Democrat Congress
What new federal programs that are never ending? What do you think we're just going to, like, once we're done building a bridge in the infrastructure bill, we're just going to build another one on top of it? Just going to blow it up and rebuild it again? We're just digging holes and filling them?
and ultimately we all pay that bill. You know, I mean, in the days of
Huh. Popping audio. That's really weird. On him? Let me see what's going on. I don't know why it'd be like that. It's very weird. Try to fix it. Let me see. Doobie doo. Yeah. Let's see. External message. Maybe if I switch this to monitor. See if this helps at all. 1 second.
Grover Norquist, it was all about don't let
You
them
guys-
tax us more. They can't raise taxes. But now it's more about the monetary.
Is that better? Was that better? Is it popping fart sound? That's odd. MacBook Pro sound. That's better? Okay. I hope it stays that way. I apologize, guys. I didn't change anything that made it, work. Hold on. We'll back up.
3 weeks later. The gas prices are through the roof. They went down for a second because we released the strategic reserves for no reason.
Yeah, we just released them. That's what we did. Did you know that? We released the strategic reserves, and we did it for no reason. And by ourselves, even though we did it with a bunch of other countries, and it's working.
Big Biden look better. Now they want to spend even more money because the promise is that if you let us do the Build Back Better BS, then we somehow will make inflation go away if we spend trillions of more of your dollars. They don't think we're going to buy that, do they? I mean, even on the left, the most moderate lefties, the Democrats are going, dude, this guy really messed things up. They don't think Americans will buy that, do they?
No, they're not saying this guy really messed things up. Like, that's not even part of the conversation. Build Back Better has been brought down from 3.5 to 1.7. I said it was going to probably go through in the spring and probably be closer to 1.5. That's just me continuing to be right.
Well, they are stuck with the economic reality that they have created by embracing policies that
By being alive during the time of COVID.
damage the supply
Thanks,
chain,
Rob.
that drive up inflation, and that limit the buying power of consumers. Joe, I really hope you didn't eat that rack of ribs. You should probably keep it because the ribs may actually hold their value better than the American dollar.
Right.
Dude, fuck off.
That you have in your
come on.
pocket. I mean, this is not like complicated economic theory. If just printing more money made your nation stronger, Zimbabwe would be the strongest country in the world.
Right.
We're not printing more money. We aren't. We've been through this a bunch of times anyways. This is just standard run-of-the-mill bullshit. Like this is just, he's flipping through like a little booklet of bumper stickers and just going tack, tack. None of it's true.
But they aren't, and it doesn't. And I think it's really important to question a lot of the legislative ambitions that this Democrat Congress still has. Though they weren't able to get Build Back Better, they are still working every day here in Washington to try to create new federal programs that are never ending, that create mandatory spending, and ultimately we all pay that bill. I mean, in the days of Grover Norquist, it was all about don't let them tax us more. They can't raise taxes. But now it's more about the monetary policies that make the dollars in your pocket worth less, and that crushes working class.
So it's a good point. So dollars right now, according to Matt Gaetz, worth less. They're worth less than they were years ago. And yet, gas prices were higher in 2014. So it was taking more value from you in terms of dollars than it is now. Because even though the price is up compared to where it was, it's lower than where it was then, and your dollars were worth more then. So according to Matt Gaetz, we're all making money on this deal.
People, middle class people, the most.
Gaetz.house.gov/firebrand. Go there right now. It's U.S. Representative Matt Gaetz. Do you take any silent pleasure, any quiet pleasure in your most private times to Manchin and Sinema being called racist and being attacked by their own party because they dare take the same stance Schumer and Obama and Biden took in 2005?
Yeah, it really is something to watch the circular firing squad that seems to be forming among Democrats in Congress. And sometimes it's scary, Joe, to think that like the nation is being held together by one Joe Manchin and one Kyrsten Sinema.
Well, I mean, granted, when they do align in those moments, they are aligning with the entire wall of Republicans who aren't even engaged in the conversation.
Because they are the backstop against just an unending stream of policies that draw America into a state of socialist tailspin.
Right.
Socialist tailspin. Like wind and solar and basically being energy sufficient permanently as opposed to just like throwing subsidies at oil till it ratchets it way up to get it out onto the market and then having to go, in the case of Donald Trump, beg Russia and Saudi Arabia to stop producing so much
economically, socially, culturally, and otherwise. And so we certainly encourage the senators who are trying to provide any pushback to this dangerous agenda, no matter where they may come from. And I saw the recent news creating a lot of scuttlebutt on the Hill today that Bernie Sanders may be recruiting a primary challenge to Joe Manchin. So it'll be interesting to see Bernie trade the mountains of Vermont for the mountains of West Virginia. My expectation there is that a Bernie Sanders flavored politics is probably not what would be successful in a statewide election in West Virginia.
I think those who are watching and listening, Matt, are wondering, can you, the Republicans, the conservatives, those who love American values, can you do anything before the next election? Can you?
Okay, first of all, by the way, I love American values. He doesn't. For the record, just putting that out there.
Do anything to turn the tide on jobs and people not going back to work, or on the economy just really stinking and inflation through the roof? Can you do anything to stop the overwhelming power grab by people like Nancy Pelosi who want this stupid Voting Rights Act, which is really just a power and control move by the left? Is there...
Yes, a power and control move to seize the power from a few, would-be mini oligarchs in these red states who don't like the way the demographics are going or don't like how the voters think of them and just want to rewrite the vote for them. Yeah, you guys, I know you wanted this, but no. I'm other guy, that's what I say. That she's trying to grab that power back from those assholes, hand it back to the people.
Or is it really, well, we really can't do anything until you give us the House back. Can't do anything until you give us the Senate back. Are we in that position, or can you do something?
I'm just hoping we're able to do something when we do get the House and Senate back. I mean, I served here for 2 years under Paul Ryan, where we were not making a great deal of progress, and we actually had control of the place. And so I want to use these next 2 years to
develop a good defense and hopefully not spend time under the jail. Of course, it's Florida, though, so he might get the Epstein treatment. They might just give him a key to his jail cell, And he just promises, like, pinky swears to show up on
Our
weekends.
Republicans to be the best, most inspirational versions of ourselves to the country, to show Americans that if we get the House, we won't just twiddle our thumbs and wring our hands. We'll actually do the critical oversight to expose how these policies are actually contributing to the pain that the American people are feeling. Now, to do that, we're going to have the right types of campaigns and the right types of candidacies around the country.
This is his problem. None of the Trumpians can win statewide anymore. That's their real issue. They can get House groups, but they're having a hell of a time finding a way in even really right-wing states to get people that can win statewide.
But the wins that freedom has achieved have not come from the halls of Congress, but courthouses, where the SEALs case gave some comfort to some military families dealing with this vaccine mandate, where the OSHA mandate was struck down. So we still need courageous judges to actually stand up in an embrace of freedom and our constitutional principles.
Not going to be an issue you run on this year. It's going to be over by then.
And we've got to get back in power to be able to do the necessary oversight. But I don't take it as an article of faith that if
who would? Sorry.
we get power, we'll do right by the American people. We've got to earn that.
Very well said. Firebrand is the book. Firebrand is the podcast. One last question with U.S. Representative Matt Gaetz. Matt, as these fruitless investigations into you continue.
Not quite. They're sort of on the low-hanging fruit right now, but fruitless isn't the word I would use. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what his preferences are in terms of holes in watermelons.
As the ridiculous Kabuki theater continues into January 6th, we're hearing things about Nancy Pelosi being worth $250 million. We're hearing about her investing in things that she has oversight in investigating and in bringing to the floor items that could keep social media, for example, in check. Will there be investigations into Nancy Pelosi?
Oh, you mean because she lives in Silicon Valley and she's around this area and she has, like, what? Part of her pension goes into, like, social media companies because they diversify and a bunch of other shit, because she's firewalled that stuff off, and it's actually worked because her district is actually really rich.
Will it be investigations into Liz Cheney and this Kinzinger guy? I mean,
yeah, just investigate them. You know what I mean? Since you started this whole thing off where there's a legitimate case and someone is legitimately was granted immunity for the testimony they offered up about this asshole. You started with that and how that's the weaponization of the DOJ, and you're going to wrap it up with Liz Cheney and Kinzinger need to be investigated. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Benny Loco.
What they're doing is so opposite of what I thought representation was supposed to be. They're clearly looking out for their own personal agendas, and they're not looking out for the American people. Will there be an investigation into why Nancy Pelosi's worth $250 million?
There should be, and we should also change the laws so that members
because she's old
of Congress aren't trading stocks where they may have inside information. I think the American people understand that that's a pretty basic decision that you should make. Should you be on the side of stock investing or should you be on the side of federal lawmaking? You probably shouldn't be on the side of both, and certainly Nancy Pelosi's family has benefited from being on both sides of that line. And Democrats and their
anybody with half a brain that lives in the Silicon Valley area can recognize which companies are growing and worth investing in, even if they don't even have to tell their financial advisor what they're going to put money into. Years ago, hey, everybody says Apple's fucked and nobody's buying Apple stock anymore. And yet, they are building a gigantic campus. Perhaps they know something I don't know, which is basically their job.
Puppets like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger have certainly been very willing to target not issues or legislation, but members of the Republican Party they don't like Jim Jordan, like Scott Perry, like myself. And I do think when we get power, we shouldn't be so austere as to avoid the investigations that would show not only the financial corruption by Democrats, but the actual money moving that occurred during the summer of 2020, where Democrat members of Congress were actively contributing to the violence and the riots and the destruction of
Oh, because they were getting protesters out of jail.
property
That's the whole thing.
that shook this nation. That should never happen again, and we have to expose the Squad and any other member of Congress, and frankly, even the Vice President of the
You can do it from jail, dude. I mean, you'll have. I'm sure they have a great prison library.
United States for their direct involvement in that very, very disgusting activity.
100%. Go to gates.house.gov/firebrand. Get his book, Firebrand. Check out his podcast is amazing. Don't ever leave Congress. You'd be taking my job. Knock it off.
Hey, man, we should do something together. We should collaborate
100%.
sometime, Joe.
Yeah, this would be great. Since neither one of us have any viewers.
Anytime, well, we just did, but I certainly would like to do it long form as well. Go and check out his podcast. It's amazing. The guests he has on and the insights that you get from Congress that the media won't tell you about are second to none. Matt, thanks a million. I appreciate you.
Yeah, they really break down. It might be a little wonky for most people. They do break down a lot of legalese and how, tax. I'm just fucking around. They just scream basically QAnon stuff through a filter.
Hey, great to be back on with you, but I expect next time I'm on, you'll have some element of your physical appearance that will show that kind of like rough New Yorker out in exile in Texas.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear a tank top or something. Matt, thanks a million, buddy. Happy New Year to you. Happy
New Year, Joe.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. We're back after this. Stay right here.
No, I'm good. Can you imagine a bigger waste of time if you're a member of Congress? Dude has and maybe chat room knows this. I don't think he's ever presented a bill of his own. I think he's signed on to some stuff, but that's it, right? Well, let's go to another from one house to the other. Tom Cotton. By the way, welcome to the show. It's Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. I'm in San Francisco this weekend because I'm doing stand-up, so the format's a little different. That's where we are. And I don't want these. Turn that off. Tom Cotton's on Fox saying our adversaries are taking advantage of us at every turn. So this is part of his big America Sucks Brigade talk. He's been on this diatribe for a while, and granted, as a member of the Senate,
of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator,
as a member of the Senate, he has a tendency, I think, that they've got a long-form strategy that nothing can work in this country unless they're in charge. And when they are in charge, everything that's failing is someone else's fault.
Morning to you today. The foreign minister in Ukraine.
Yeah, he didn't mean good morning yesterday when you weren't on, just to clarify. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, that's good. Is somebody in the control room going, what the fuck is he talking about? Why would you? Who gives a? What do you mean today?
A fine point on this, saying that a country cannot be half invaded. Are we making progress on this or not?
Well, yeah, they can. They can be cyber attacked, for example. That'd be one of them. Where, technically speaking, they are doing something that would be damaging to infrastructure, dangerous to people's lives, and yet they haven't fired a shot. So that would be one of the areas. But hey, I thought we were adults having a conversation.
Unfortunately, Bill, I don't think so. Our Secretary of State met with the Russian Foreign
My lunch is on fire.
Minister this morning.
Whose idea was it to have a cookout in a war zone?
As is often the case throughout history, I don't think that was diplomacy trying to avoid a war on Russia's part. I think it was diplomacy stalling until the conditions are right for war, which for Russia are getting all of its troops in place and waiting for the right weather conditions. All this, though, is happening not in a vacuum, but in the context of a year.
By the way, this is Russian training footage put out by the Kremlin. It's all very macho. And I hope, unless this is Ukrainian stuff, which looks exactly the same.
President Biden's appeasement of Russia in the first months in office.
But Russia put out a bunch of this stuff like they were getting ready.
He gave away the store on a nuclear arms treaty to Vladimir Putin. Then he allowed Vladimir Putin to continue to construct the gas pipeline that's going into Germany. And then, of course, Vladimir Putin saw the debacle in Afghanistan.
It's weird. He lets him do it, and then Putin gets more angry. That's a point of conversation we haven't really talked about. Never mind the fact that, again, I've argued that making this a choke point, I'm going to squeeze this down and move this over a little bit, is that letting Nord Stream go through creates a choke point for us. It bottlenecks the Russian gas industry and allows us to stop it in the future in a way that doesn't require us killing human beings. And not just us, lots of people. And so it's something that they'll have to deal with. It's now their biggest worry is that's the way that they're going to get their gas to the market. So they've got to protect it. And we're not letting anybody insure it. So they're cash out of pocket and their own people have to go in and repair it if anything happens to it. Awfully nice, pipeline you got there. It's a shame if somebody were to set fire to it. So one of the other aspects of this, I suppose, is that somehow Biden is being nicer to Putin than Trump was, allegedly, because he's allowing Nord Stream to continue, although there are heavy sanctions, like I said, on the insurers. And yet, that actually pushed Putin to a more aggressive stance. You don't think for a second that he might be aware of how dangerous it is to put all their eggs in one basket and recognize that that's exactly what's fucking happening? And that he's being flanked in Kazakhstan? No? Nice way of thinking of the United States. That's, yeah.
Stand that exposed President Biden as weak and feckless. And then just a couple days ago.
By the way, that's so we're watching. Okay, this is Ukrainian footage now. The other guys, the guys who were getting the explosions around and were climbing the tires, that's Russian. This is Ukrainians moving their gear in. And this is, by the way, an American senator talking about the American president during a negotiation between our countries, between the U.S. and Russia, involving Ukraine, by the way, calling him weak and feckless. So that's nice. That's good.
He heard exactly what Joe Biden said when he went off script, not when he was reading from talking points, not when he sent out underlings to speak about what he meant. He spoke about, quote, a minor incursion. Or like the president of Ukraine alluded to, incursions are kind of like surgeries. They're only minor when they happen to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's talking about cyber attacks, by the way, that we're not going to nuke them because of a cyber attack, because they already just had one. A material incursion, crossing the border, that's what he was talking about.
Now is the time to try to avoid this war in Eastern Europe. The last thing the American people want to see is a war that undermines any of our interest in Europe. So we need to continue to provide the Ukrainians the weapons they need to defend their own country.
Which we are.
And we need to make it clear the sanctions and other economic and financial consequences Russia will face if they invade Ukraine again.
We are. Again, where's the difference in here? Is it just how macho Tom Cotton is presenting this information? Is that what we're doing? That's the difference between what Tom Cotton just said and what Biden said? Is that Tom Cotton said it in a way that was all buff and stuff?
We need our NATO partners to be united with us on that as well. I want you to
Yeah, they are. And
at a media montage I'm sorry, this is of administration officials. You had Blinken, Psaki, Harris. Everybody was out trying to figure out a way to put the president's comments back in a bottle. Did it work? Let's take a look.
We've been clear.
I think you heard very clearly multiple times last night from the president. The president has been crystal clear.
Let me be very clear on what the president has conveyed directly to President Putin.
The president was very clear. He's got a plan to do that.
It is clear to us that the decision is probably in his hands. We are clear and have been clear for quite some time.
Senator, in my experience, if it's clear, you don't need to have lots of different people explaining how clear it is.
Well, if you're talking about negotiations where you're not present, you do. And in 80% of those clips you just showed, because I don't know the context, because you curiously removed the context from it, Fox News, when you put them out, is that some of the stuff that was said in that was referring to their conversations with the Russians directly, not what they've said in public or at a lectern or even in a press conference, but in their direct negotiations. That's what they're talking about. So,
yeah, I think it's clear as mud, Dana. Another telling moment when Joe Biden went off script was yesterday when your own Jackie Heinrich asked a very good question. Why is he sitting around waiting for Vladimir Putin to make the first move? And he called that a stupid question.
It is a stupid question. No one's waiting for him to make the first move. Also, what's the first move, dumb fuck? What qualifies? Yeah, why is he waiting around for Putin to make the first move? Why don't we just bomb them? Why are we waiting around for them to fire the first shot? Why don't we fire the first shot? Okay, first of all, that on premise is fucking lunacy. Then, why are we just waiting around? Well, they're diplomatically talking to Russia on multiple fronts. They're arranging sanctions. They're talking to allies. The allies are aligned with all of those sanctions. They're coordinating all of those things with NATO and with our allies. They're not just sitting around waiting for Putin to make the first move. It was a fucking stupid question. It is stupid. Why is Tom Cotton, here you go, I'll show you. Why is Tom Cotton just sitting around waiting for Putin to make the first move before he presents a bill to the floor of the Senate that declares war on Russia? If you think that's what it's going to lead to, if he thinks this is a bridge too far, if it's an aggression that threatens our European neighbors, why is he waiting? Tom Cotton, why are you waiting for Russia to make the first move? Like, this is fucking ridiculous.
Actually, it's a very good question, not just about Ukraine, but about foreign policy under the Biden presidency in general.
What are you talking about? We reached out to them, told them what our stance was, and then they called us and said, we'd like talks. They're currently drafting paper answers to the Kremlin stuff, questions, so that nothing's, that in the group dynamics of talking about stuff, that there is nothing taken for granted in these situations. This is where we'll go. This is what's okay. This is what's not okay. That's what they're doing right now. What the fuck? What's the alternative? What is the suggestion here? What is Tom Cotton suggesting? The missiles are away, hallelujah. And secondly, you gotta think. I mean, honestly, the dude knows this. Look how low energy he is. Everything's just kind of blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Well, this is something. Like, he's just running through this perfunctory anti-Biden bullshit.
Look, when it comes to international politics, either you run the show or the show runs you.
Yeah, you say it, man. That's right. Sometimes the bar eats you, and sometimes you and the bar eat each other, and kind of this bar you 69 thing. You know what I mean?
And for the last year, President Biden has been allowing the show to run things, and that's why our adversaries, not just Vladimir Putin, but Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, have been taking advantage of us at every turn.
And they have not. Do you think this asshole doesn't know about the AUKUS agreement? He doesn't know that our ships and our subs are doing laps around Taiwan right now? That we are partnering with Japan and Australia to push back against China, and that Japan and Australia, with our blessing and with some of our supplies, are pushing back in another angle against them? Think he doesn't know this? So what's he doing? What is this? Why would you bring this shit up? Talk about this issue, not bring that stuff up, if you weren't just cheering for the other side?
It's time to get off the back foot and get on the front foot to get the outcome that Americans want, which is to avoid a war.
Yeah, get on the front foot to avoiding a war. What the fuck is the front foot? Again, you got to lean into not punching. What the fuck is this dude talking about?
That undermines our interests.
Senator, last question here. You heard what Mitch McConnell had. He had 3 specific ideas for how you could help Ukraine now defend itself. Is there a motion for this to happen?
there is, it needs to be happening faster and at a higher volume. The Biden administration has dithered for too long, not just in providing Ukraine with our weapons to defend against Russian armored columns or Russian aircraft, but approving our allies in NATO who want to do this. Oftentimes they need American approval because it's American technology. And just yesterday did they finally give approval to some of our NATO partners. We need to accelerate those approvals. We need to...
How do you accelerate an approval that already went out? And why weren't you talking about this 2 months ago, saying we need to accelerate those approvals? He's literally only bringing this shit up because they just already happened. Whatever just happened, the thing that just happened, didn't happen fast enough. Well, then why didn't you bring it up before it happened? Well, because we got to be on the front foot.
Our European partners to do their part to protect European security, because ultimately they have to do as much as we're willing to do to help deter this invasion from happening. As much as the American people don't want to see a major conflict in Europe, you would have to assume that the European peoples don't want to see one even more. We need to stand with them and encourage them to do more.
And again, this is fappery. This is just nonsense. Yeah. Whole lot of neck, not a lot of thought. There's a lot of neck and no head going on there. Again, look at his face. Is it just me, or does he look like embarrassed to be saying this stuff? I mean, I know you have to go on in this day and age and, as a Republican, be a complete shitheel about your own country. You can't go on there and go, well, we're doing certain things, but here's a couple of crucial things that I think would be better. He's not. He's just coming in and talking in these bland, bizarrely lame ideological platitudes.
Senator Tom Cotton, thank you so much. We'll probably be talking to you next week as well.
Thank you for being here, Bill. Jesus Christ, is it bourbon? What's happening?
Tom Cotton, thank you so much. We'll probably be
oh, it's easy to grin when your ship comes in.
talking to you next week as well. Thank you. We appreciate it.
I want to.
Jesus Christ. I did not realize how drunk Bill Hemmer was during that whole thing. Oh, God. So, before I, as we enter into sort of the ridiculousness, this little piece right here is, one of the things that the Biden administration, when they came in, their primary goal was to get people vaccinated, get kids back in school, churches back open, get people like the normal economy going again, right, tackle unemployment, and get mainly the infrastructure bill and, of course, the rescue package that they got through, which they got through without any concessions. And the infrastructure bill itself was something that Trump touted he was going to do, he was for, and yet could never manage even when he had total control. So we have a 50-50 split in the Senate and still managed to get more than a filibuster's, beating coalition of Republicans to sign on to it. And again, one of the only reasons Trump didn't get his infrastructure package passed is because he would have needed Democrats to do it. And Democrats could have said, yeah, we worked with him on the stuff that's valuable to the country. And that would have undermined his whole story that he tells everybody. So he just didn't do it. Because screw the country, it's about his pride. And now, apparently, after, Tucker Carlson and all these guys have noticed that the number of people at the border is going down, partly because of shifts in policy, partly because it's friggin' winter, that apparently there's something else going on. That suddenly they care about borders. This is what Tucker says. Shall we see?
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, there's nothing more tiresome or predictable than
your opening monologue as being gibberish and sort of veering all over the place.
News host who makes the show about himself. Narcissism is to TV people what black lung is to coal miners, and we do our
what?
To avoid catching it. But tonight we're going to break our rule and tell you about something pretty interesting that happened to this show a couple of days ago.
Oh my God, he talks about his show all the time. What do you mean break the rule? Jesus Christ. They were coming after you. Remember, you were going to be blackmailed. Remember this nonsense last year? The administration was going to use it to like ruin the show. And it boosted the ratings for about 3 days, and then it didn't go anywhere. And then he was clearly in negotiations with Fox, and instead of giving him a raise, they gave him that stupid Fox Nation show that nobody watches on a paywall fucking Fox site. Jesus.
On Tuesday, we did a segment about the nation of Ukraine. Now, Ukraine may be a perfectly nice place to visit, but you wouldn't think it would get a lot of attention from a superpower like this one. Ukraine's a...
What? What do you mean it wouldn't get a lot of attention about it? Huh? Why not? Dude, Rudy was over there making energy deals. That's where he bought the fake Hunter Biden laptop hard drive.
Pretty small country, really. It's in Eastern Europe. It's 5,000 miles from Washington. It's got a population about the size of the state of California. So hugely significant? Not really.
Yeah, it is. It's a breakaway republic that wants to stay democratic, that is siding with Europe, and it borders Russia. And Russia's trying to, and has been trying to, kill that for a long time. See, a lot of times, I don't know if you know this, Tucker, but as Americans, we actually give a shit about democracy, especially when people take it upon themselves. You know, it's a little rough when we go to a country that we think should have democracy and we spend about, 20 years. It's been a while because we just got out of one. I forget which president got us out. But in that time, you know, we were trying to establish some sort of democracy. Meanwhile, here's another country that wants democracy itself, is being undermined by Russia the entire time, who we allegedly are in the UN with. We engage in trade partnerships with them and other people around them, and we let this slide. I don't know. Now, Tucker apparently thinks that that's good, that Russia's absorbing of all of its former satellites would be better for him somehow.
And yet we never seem to stop talking about Ukraine. As the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden himself spent an enormous amount of his time meddling in the internal affairs of Ukraine. And because of his influence in that...
Meddling. You mean on behalf of the Biden administration or the Obama administration, when he was sent over there to do that, he was made the point person? Meddling? I see.
His son Hunter got a job at a Ukrainian company and got rich from that. Then Donald Trump was impeached for speaking on the phone to an official from, yes, Ukraine.
Oh, I'm sorry. He was just impeached for speaking to them? Oh my God, it must be a terrible place. You can't even talk to somebody from there, and you get impeached for that? It's incredible. Did he actually use words, or did he just talk like Charlie Brown's teacher? Just that's enough. Just impeach him.
And
I don't even know what he
as
said.
of tonight, we're moving closer to a war over Ukraine. In the coming...
Or we're getting closer to it because Russia's about to try and invade a country that they invaded during the Obama administration, and the Republicans apparently thought that was like an example of total weakness on the Obama administration's part, thought we should have fought back, thought we should have made a bigger deal out of it. Now they want to do more of it. They're like, I don't know, I like the cut of this Putin guy's jib.
Russia may violate Ukraine's eastern border, and this, we are told, cannot stand. In Washington, the territorial integrity of the United States means precisely nothing. Walls are racist. We're a nation of immigrants. But the territorial integrity of Ukraine, that is something we must fight for.
Yeah, that's totally the same thing. Immigrants coming into a country versus hundreds of tanks. Tell you what, Tucker, when Mexico starts stationing 150,000 troops, tanks, anti-aircraft missiles, and starts building a runway that points towards Texas, well, then I'll get nervous. Immigration and a material invasion by a military force are kind of different. I don't know if you can tell the difference because you're stupid.
Watch as a remarkably broad spectrum of political figures appear on all three cable networks to explain that if Russians cross the Ukrainian border in an undocumented caravan, we have a moral obligation to use force immediately.
Yeah, they're not just walking. They would be literally in tanks, you dumb son of a bitch.
We will move NATO assets closer to Russia, not further away, if they once again bring war to Ukraine.
Yeah, if they once again bring war to Ukraine. And by the way, this says more about Tucker Carlson than it does about any of the people that he's showing. Because Tucker Carlson thinks brown people crossing the southern border, legally or not, is war.
It's not going to be that simple. I think we should be doing a lot more, and we shouldn't be just considering a diplomatic track.
There needs to be clear consequences for what they do, because we failed to deter, and now you're inviting conflict. It's a very bad situation, and we've left ourselves without many options as a result.
I don't think we're providing the deterrence necessary to stop Putin from invading Ukraine, the breadbasket of Russia.
And it's time for the Biden White House to start speaking more clearly and more aggressively and telling us how they're going to stop this invasion from happening.
Oh, they're all red in the face, but it's not the usual partisan chorus. This is the entire choir. You just saw representatives from every...
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, they don't need another soprano.
Faction in Washington, from Adam Schiff to Dan Crenshaw, not as different as they seem, and all the dummies in between.
Yeah, by the way, Dan Crenshaw is basically a Democrat, according to them. Just put a pin in that for a while. Just try to red line. In this bizarre, in his head, tracking a serial killer wall that he's put up with red string going from all these different people, connecting all the dots like a cracked out Glenn Beck. Tucker's convinced that anybody who's not directly getting support from Hungary or Russia is clearly out to destroy these countries.
And all of them are promoting war against Russia on behalf of our new and deeply beloved ally, the government of Ukraine.
No, they aren't. None of them are asking for war. Where did any of them say, we gotta go across the border before they do? Not a single fucking one. Not anybody. Like, this is infantile.
Vladimir Putin is our most dangerous enemy, they scream. We can't let him hurt Ukraine.
Well, he's the most militaristic one. I don't know that he's our most dangerous. I think arguably Kim Jong-un would be, but his missiles, as much as he tries them out, never seem to fly very far.
So it turns out Russiagate was actually more effective even than we'd realized. The Steele dossier has been debunked, but
no, it hasn't.
Washington, the theme remains in force. Russia, 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 Russia is bad.
You know that you do know they are currently amassing troops on a border. They didn't just fucking pull this out of nowhere. Nobody was thinking about invading Russia or sanctioning them anymore until this shit started happening. Again, none of the people he showed, none of the people, that he's discussing in this thing said, sight unseen that we need to go after. As a matter of fact, weren't these guys saying that Biden's going too soft on Putin by allowing the Nord Stream to go through? It's the same friggin' argument from Cotton.
What is this about exactly?
Yeah, what is it about? It couldn't be about freedom or democracy or the sanctity of Europe or the safety of it or the encroachment of a gangster kleptocratic maniac onto former Soviet republics as he pushed into Belarus and sort of took over their, undermined the democracy there, the way he tried to do in Ukraine and failed, and he's trying to spread that to a bunch of other countries.
Obviously, it's the usual collection of children falling for the usual collection of lies, but why this specific lie? On Tuesday, we tried to get to the bottom of this because it seems like it matters. We spoke
did you?
to a man called Clint Ehrlich. As Ehrlich pointed out, there are a lot of factors here driving us toward war over Ukraine, but one of them, a central one, is NATO. So what is NATO, and what is the purpose of NATO since the fall of the Soviet Union 30 years ago that NATO was designed as a bulwark against? Well, no one can answer that question.
Yeah, they can. The dude who actually runs Russia right now is an oligarchical kleptocrat, mafia-like boss that's worth $200 billion, even though his salary is $140K US. And they're selling missiles and missile technology and weapons to the Iranians, and therefore throughout the Middle East, terrorists are firing AK-47s. That's why. And if they continue to do it, they're just going to use whatever resources they get and whatever land they take over to exercise that much more control.
One person. And yet the same people who cooked up the Iraq war are now...
Yes, it's the same people.
...insisting that Ukraine must join NATO anyway.
No, they aren't. No, they aren't. The suggestion that Ukraine join NATO was back in 2008. They just haven't rescinded it. It was an invite. That's up to Ukraine.
That would mean putting American military hardware right on Russia's border, and Russia doesn't want that.
Yeah, they don't want that. Would you want that? I mean, you're putting your military shit on their border, but if they did it too, terrible.
More than we would want Russian missiles in Tijuana, hence the tension. Now, the irony, as Clint Ehrlich pointed out, is that NATO doesn't even want Ukraine to join. In other words, the whole thing is nuts. It serves no American interest whatsoever. It is yet another manufactured crisis, this one devised by restless, power-hungry neocons in Washington looking for another war.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was all part of this great plan they had to force Russia to all of a sudden decide to amass troops on Ukraine's border. It's like ninth level chess.
Here's part of what Clint Ehrlich told us.
Here we have people who are arguing that even if the Russians don't invade Ukraine, that we need to invade and kick the Russians out of Crimea. That was an op-ed from a senior Obama administration official this week.
Yeah, there's all kinds of thought about all of this. They shouldn't have been able to take that land from the Ukrainians before. They did. A lot of people are still grinding on that. The fuck does that have to do with the Biden administration's policy or the fact that we have to deal with Russians building up forces on the Ukrainian border to take the whole country? Who gives a fuck about op-eds? Oh, God.
So I would say that it's even simpler than that. We're dealing with our warmongers, unserious people whose policy prescriptions could have deadly serious consequences. The deeper irony is that NATO doesn't even want Ukraine, that it's a corrupt country, it's more of a liability than it would be a military asset, and the people who are pushing that...
No. It was a corrupt country. And then we started working with them, and their new president's a fairly solid guy. The last one, though, who, of course, was supported by a guy named, what was his name? Paul Manafort. I don't know what that guy has done since he worked for the Ukraine, and his daughters disowned him because he was the guy behind putting snipers on towers and shooting at protesters when agent provocateurs would create artificial riots within the group, giving them a pretext to murder people. I don't know what he's done since.
Simply argued that it needs to happen because Russia shouldn't have a veto over who's in NATO. In other words, even when it's in our mutual interest to not have a state in NATO, we have to insist that they'll be added just to spite the Russians.
Well, that was an interesting conversation.
Why would you even think about that? And it's just, and the fact that we invited them in 8 years ago, all of a sudden, Russia's putting troops on their border. I mean, the line between those two moments is like this.
And those seem like fair points. If they're wrong, go ahead and explain how they're wrong. Well,
they're wrong. There was no point in this where NATO was deciding to make a move to include Ukraine. In the last little bit with the U.S. normalizing their relationships with Ukraine had nothing to do with this either. This has to do with the fact that Russia had sock puppets in charge of the fucking country. Biden kicked those sock puppets out. Eventually, it got all the way up to the presidency. They were able to have a real election. Now Biden's president, and Ukraine actually has a functioning, non-corruptible government in its current form. So they just have to physically take it because their plan to gut it from the inside fell apart. This has nothing to do with fucking NATO.
Listen, but official Washington is done explaining anything, as you may have noticed. So instead, the very same foreign policy geniuses who brought slave markets to Libya went insane with rage. Not since we made fun of pregnant flight suits have they been this mad. Fox host unabashedly makes Putin's case, barked CNN's White House correspondent. Unabashedly!
Yeah, you don't give a fuck. I mean, like, I have seldom seen someone on regular broadcast cable looking to give Putin a taint hickey more than Tucker Carlson over the last couple of months in a really weird, like, in a way that it seems like something changed when he went over to Hungary and was dealing with having an interview with somebody from Russia, apparently, that he was going to have on his show, or follow Putin around and do a little puff piece about him. Since that point, he's been oddly, contrarian even though he knows better.
Shows how the disinformation successes of Russian intelligence extend way beyond Trump. Tucker's all in for Putin, noted Bill Kristol, a man who couldn't even run a small circulation magazine, but imagines he should run our country's foreign policy.
You have one show and a half. You're trying to.
And then a former DNC contractor called Alexandra Chalupa announced that this show's opinions violated the law. This isn't journalism, she wrote. It's an ongoing FARA violation. Tucker Carlson needs to be prosecuted as an unregistered agent of the Russian Federation and treason under Article 3, Section 3, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution for aiding an enemy in hybrid warfare against the United States. A death penalty offense! What Alexandra Chalupa didn't mention, speaking of FARA violations, is that she herself has extensive personal ties to the Ukrainian government. In 2016, Chalupa contacted
you mean the democracy?
Ukraine's embassy looking for dirt on Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Now she says that anyone who doesn't believe Americans should die for Ukraine must be sent to prison.
Oh, that's not what you're saying. There's lots of people who don't think we should invade. Most of them don't. You think we should just let Russia take Ukraine no matter what, and it's none of our business, even though they've asked for the help.
Virginia Congressman,
which is effectively on purpose siding with Putin in this.
Conley didn't go that far, but close. He called us right-wing agitators spewing Russian propaganda into millions of American homes like a virus. And then Congressman Eric Swalwell of California, man who literally had sex with a Chinese spy.
He doesn't know that, for the record. The Chinese spy he's talking about, the FBI contacted Eric Swalwell, said, this woman who's been raising money for your campaign, we believe she's been put there by the Chinese government. He cut all ties with her, gave him all the information he had, and then magically she went back to China and never came back. But I don't know if Tucker Carlson has literally seen photos or video, and if he has, who is he literally talking to in the Chinese special services that is showing him this stuff? Or did he see it in Hungary?
Multiple times in very strange ways, agreed with this. Carrying Putin's water again, he wrote on Twitter.
Which is true.
And then one of Barack Obama's speechwriters accused us of being, quote, on the side of ethno-nationalist authoritarianism. Oh, ethno-nationalism. So if you don't support fighting...
By the way, is this tied to something else, or does he even mention Tucker in this? Is he just... Is this supposed to be loosely attaching two ideas? We are potentially on the verge of a land war in Europe aimed at extinguishing democracy and sovereignty, and the American right wing is on the side of ethno-nationalist authoritarianism. That's where we're at. Why is that Tucker? Why is that the show? I mean, there's definitely members of the American right wing that side with that stuff. Why is he taking this personally? And by the way, he considers himself, as a journalist on Fair and Balanced Fox News, part of the American right wing. Again,
a war on behalf of all-white Ukraine against all-white Russia, you, my friend, are a racist, and so on. So what's so interesting?
Well, no, because Russia is an ethno-nationalist country. Not about Ukraine, it's about the expansion of that ethno-nationalist country. It doesn't matter that they're expanding into... Remember, the Nazis, the first country they took over was their own. And they were racists. They were ethno-nationalists. And they took over, they killed or purged anybody who wasn't on board with the ethno-nationalist part. See how that works, fucko?
Is that there was not a single argument, not a single idea in any of it. These aren't just Twitter trolls.
Those are tweets. Have me on. I'll talk you out of it, asshole.
These are people who imagine themselves foreign policy heavyweights.
You imagine yourself a foreign policy heavyweight.
Deep thinkers, statesmen. But when challenged, all they could muster was name-calling. They went ad hominem immediately because they had nothing else.
Well, no, I would say that the rest of the argument that they're having speaks for itself, because it's obvious to anybody watching that it wasn't NATO expansion, a letter from 2008, that drove Putin to start amassing troops on the Ukrainian border. Anyone can see that. And our ongoing relationship with Ukraine, which was on really shaky ground under Trump, suddenly steadying under Biden, but in no aggressive way, just through regular support, in general. that mixed with whatever Putin's plans are for the future is why he's amassed them. Not because of some direct aggressive action on the part of the United States or NATO or Europe in general. Again, the right wing on the very same channel he's on is all day long saying that, Trump was way hard on Putin, because every sanction the Senate put on, Trump would wait until the last hour he legally could to impose them so these guys would have enough time to shuffle their money around and get out of the way so the sanctions would have as little impact as possible instead of him putting them on as soon as the bill is signed. And then you've got this argument that somehow NATO, just for existing, and Biden and Ukraine discussing the sovereignty of Ukraine because of its oil and gas reserves, which, by the way, are important to the functioning of Europe. And if Russia were to take those oil and gas reserves, they would basically have a stranglehold on the energy needs of Europe for the next decade, and therefore could politically manipulate those governments or, quite frankly, shut their lights off and kill a bunch of their people in a matter of weeks. Which would be a point of concern if you gave a fuck about human life. And again, this all came about because Putin, apropos of nothing, decided it was time. It's time. It's time to amass troops on the border. Last time, when Biden was VP, we took Crimea. Let's give it another shot. So all those people are speaking in that context. The geopolitical context of the reality of basically Russia, a country with a smaller, since we're talking about shit that's got fewer people than California, Russia has a smaller economy than California, has decided that one of the ways it keeps itself afloat and its oligarchs rich and fat and happy is by stealing the resources of other countries. It's doing it with Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan ousted the Russian-friendly leader and has started siding with China in the BRI because that's where the money was flowing from. And they've got deep shit in Kazakhstan. And that whole nonsense about they came in and helped out and left is bullshit. China made them leave. And so Russia is looking at these two areas where if Kazakhstan is its own country, and it totally is, and can make deals with China and Uzbekistan and Turkestan and all those areas, Turkmenistan, and can side, and Ukraine's by itself, they can basically scissor off a chunk of the country between the two of them, which is full of resources and reaches the Caspian Sea. There's real shit going on. And so what these people are talking about is, with all that context, this fucko has decided that, we should just let him have it. Russia's in a bad spot. They're doing nothing but pump oil and gas. They're running out of it. They need it for themselves, and yet they need every dime that comes with it to keep the Putin's entire group of friends afloat. So what do they need? They need the Ukrainian land and resources. So they're just going to take it. Old world, theft by war.
They're pathetic. That ought to worry you, though, because they may be pathetic, they're also very powerful. So in the end, it fell to poor Kamala Harris.
No one is making a clear argument for war. No one is making an argument for war at all, fucko.
To explain why we need to fight for the honor of Ukraine. And she did it on the Today Show, the Biden administration's forum for deep thoughts on foreign policy. Here's what she said.
And on the subject of Ukraine, I will tell you that the president has been very clear, and we as the United States are very clear. If Putin takes aggressive action, we are prepared to levy serious and severe costs, period. And I will tell you that part of the posture that we have taken is grounded in the respect and the value we place in sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Reading her little talking points as vehemently as she can. But
this is a functioning government, so we kind of get everybody on the same page when you do that. Instead of having like this scattershot bullshit that Trump does, because it's all great when Mike Pence comes out and acts all serious and flattens his lips and his eyes and, says the president's taking every consideration and is looking at every possible angle. And then Trump comes out and goes, why don't you stick a light bulb up your ass? Maybe that'll work. It's nice when the United States, as important as it is as a country, actually has their messaging together.
Just the emphasis we place, the value we place on territorial integrity, borders, sovereignty, the right to determine who comes into your country and when. That's the...
Yeah, we have a CBP. People are ejected if they don't come in here. If they have asylum claims, they're met. Like, this is just, I know this is like an easy conflation he's trying to make, but it's really pitiful.
From Kamala Harris, the lifelong open borders activist. So how should...
No, that's the open border stuff that he's talking about or she's talking about is basically a green card system where migrant workers who live in Mexico can come over, work, and go home, instead of having to sneak in and kind of stay below the radar for decades to be able to live. By the way, the farmers in those areas want that too.
Putin handle this? Well, Putin had a better imagination. Apparently he doesn't. He'd paint the Russian tanks now massed on the Ukrainian border with the slogan, "No person is illegal." What would Kamala Harris say to that? On what grounds would she tell Russians who just want a better life with their families in Ukraine that they can't come to Ukraine?
Well, I think the tanks are the problem, dumbass. This is a lazy analogy. Do you imagine how much time they spent winding up this BS in the prep room before the show? Oh, look, we'll do this angle about how it's the same thing. Hundreds of tanks, well-armed soldiers, anti-aircraft missiles. It's the same as migrant families with 2-year-olds walking through a desert trying to get a job. You know what I mean? What's the fucking difference? And Shazam a Shazow.
If the Russians just quoted Emma Lazarus, Kamala Harris would have to back off and support them and their voting rights in Ukraine. But unfortunately for them, the Russians are just too literal for this. When they invade a country, they just go ahead and call it an invasion.
Yeah, they don't just send Guatemalans, Hondurans, Mexicans, Brazilians, and Haitians that have left of their own free will across a border to try and get work, who are the majority rejected and sent back, which wouldn't be a very good invasion, I will give you that.
But you still have to wonder, invasion or not, why is any of this a...
By the way, look at this shit. Disaster awaits. Democracy is not worth fighting for, kids. That's the message from Tucker tonight. The hell with democracy. If anybody asks us for help, not our problem. And if you try, it's a disaster. P.S. He's been in the jingoistic network for 2 decades.
Concern of ours. Why would you even consider risking American lives?
We're not.
Billions of dollars to stop it.
To stop what? Oh, we're going back to Paul Manafort and Donald Trump removing offensive weapons for Ukraine from the RNC platform in 2016?
There are multiple borders wars underway around the world. There are multiple. Just on the continent of Africa right now. There always have been. Many are dying in those wars. Mm-hmm. And yet Kamala Harris is not agitating for American troops to Congo.
That's because none of those troops intend to move further into or have the capability to move further into the greater continent. We're talking about civil wars around questionable borders that exist in the first place, not recognized by both sides.
How come? We can only speculate about that.
I'm sure you'd be for it, though.
What we do know is that the administration's Russia policy would only make sense if your goal was to gravely hurt the United States of America.
Huh? That's what it is? Yeah, that's what Biden wants to do, is get us into another long-form war. That's why he just got us out of one.
Already we have spent nearly $4 billion in aid to Ukraine over the last few years, much of it for weapons. The point of this is to tweak Russia and, if necessary, to kill Russians.
No, it is not. It is to defend Ukraine if the Russians decide to tweak a few Ukrainians.
Our elites feel very superior about this morally. They brag about it constantly.
By the way, you're an elite, you're a trust fund kid, you're on cable news for God knows why, and you consider yourself an elite in every conversation you've ever mentioned about yourself. And what you're doing is apparently the elites on Fox News side with Putin.
So it's a win for them. But what about the cost to the rest of us and to our country? China is the preeminent threat to the United States. Nothing comes close to the threat that China poses.
Right, but there's no territorial linkage even between Taiwan and the United States. It's not like Taiwan's attached to fucking Hawaii, asshole. Like, it's a consideration, but territorially, do you have any fucking idea how far they have to go to even matter geographically with us?
Here's the truth. The U.S. military, impressive as it is not big enough to engage meaningfully, simultaneously in Europe and in Asia.
It doesn't have to, nor would it. First of all, we would work with NATO in that, and our carrier group would do plenty of damage without ever having to go anywhere near that place. We have the NATO support there, and then around Taiwan and with China, we have Japan and Australia to work with, and India. And Japan, I got news for you, could take out the Chinese Navy alone with just their defensive ships, without even any help from us, which they would get.
Both at the same time. So our attention to Ukraine, by definition, detracts from our attention to China.
No, it doesn't. We're not in a military exercise with China at all. And again, there's a difference here. This is a lot closer to the movement into Hong Kong, for example, which is terrifying and horrible. But Taiwan is not physically attached. It's a much bigger deal. Russia and Ukraine are physically attached. And Ukraine is physically attached to the rest of Europe. Ask the Swedes.
But worse and more dangerous than that, more dangerous than anything, it drives the Russians into an alliance of convenience, of necessity, with the Chinese government.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. The Chinese want the Russian oil fields. They want the Russian land. And the Russians want the Chinese land. They just don't want any people on it. I mean, again, can you read some history books that don't involve crayons?
So here you have our two biggest rivals united.
Yeah, they're totally united right now. Oh, God. Hold on one second. Let's see, hold on. Oops. Oh, I see. This is where he's getting it a bunch. There you go. This is the, let's see, can I, yeah, here you go. Take this one. It's very good here. Doink. There you go. Oops. This is way back in December of 2021, so. China and Russia show solidarity, but likely won't support each other militarily, analysts say. You think? Chinese President Xi Jinping met his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin virtually for the second time this year on Wednesday. The meeting came just days after the U.S. and another group of 7 major economies condemned Russia's military buildup of aggressive rhetoric towards Ukraine. Beijing likely wants to ensure that if it were to take military action against Taiwan, the Russians wouldn't do anything. That's it. See that? Wouldn't do anything. Said Angela Stent, a professor at Georgetown University. I think both sides recognize Putin knows that if he invaded Ukraine, China isn't going to send military help. They're not siding with each other. International pressure may have pushed China and Russia to close together, but not enough for the two countries to send military support to each other, U.S.-based analysts say. Wednesday just days, okay. Beijing and Moscow are forging closer ties because both governments view deeper bilateral cooperation as beneficial to their respective national interests, and not primarily because of an ideological affinity between Xi and Putin. They want their borders to stay the way they are so that they can keep their borders the way they want. But it has nothing to do... Hold on, let me see if I can blow this back up. With the actual military support of each other. And so this farcical idea that somehow we're going to be fighting the Russians and the Chinese, they're going to coordinate their attacks on these two pieces of land simultaneously is bullshit. Because NATO itself, without us, can push back on the Russian troops. Russia's entire military budget is $66 billion a year. The NATO budget is somewhere in the order of what? What's the... Here, hold on. Let me look up what the latest... NATO military budget. Let's see if this throws into civil budget. 1.56 billion, 289 million. Sorry. So let me look at this real quick. Yeah, so they get that on their own for just the overarching. All member countries contribute to these budgets, and then we give in military stuff. So the guiding part is 1.9 billion, and let me see what the other one is. Hold on. Russian total military budget. This is all their stuff all over the world. The official budget is 48. It's down from 90 in 2012. Why Russian? Here you go. Much higher than commonly understood, as is China's. Right. Cool. So the U.S. budget, military budget, I don't have to tell anybody, is around the order of $784 billion a year.
Not simply against our military, but against our currency. When the US dollar is displaced as the world's reserve currency,
which is not going to happen.
And when that happens, this country will become poor overnight.
Yeah, what do you think it's going to be? The yuan? The ruble? And no, it won't.
This, what you're watching now, will be one of the reasons why it happened.
No, it won't. What the fuck is he talking about? As a matter of fact, these kind of fights are one of the reasons why the U.S. maintains its dominance as a world's currency. It's one of the things we kind of have to push back at, because war adventurism doesn't seem to hurt it at all. We were fucking dumping money into Afghanistan for 20 fucking years and it didn't do anything.
So it's hard to imagine anything more significant or destructive than what these people are doing right now. It's not just...
I mean, this is just cartoonishly bullshit.
About Ukraine, it's about our future. Hey, Sean Hannity here.
That's the end. That he bails out on that. So what did we see in this multiple argument? Okay, first of all, what the fuck do we care about Ukraine for anyways? We've been caring about Ukraine for a while. Now we're picking a fight with Putin, which he doesn't want to have. Look at how mean and stern, and he looks like Clint Eastwood in one of the latter films. And poor Putin over here. Look at him. I don't tell everything. And then we're moving close to war because of Ukraine. That's the look at the Chiron. Then war machine. Look at the United States is like holy shit. The U.S. Capitol is a war machine. And then there are a lot of people who want a conflict in the war machine, I presume. Then continuing on with that bullshit for a while, and then disaster awaits. Permanent Washington is itching for a war. Permanent Washington. So the deep state. That's what Permanent Washington means the deep state. So, this is his way of saying derp state without actually getting caught saying it. And then boom, and helicopters. And remember Afghanistan? And helicopters in Afghanistan? You just saw a guy fall out of a helicopter in Afghanistan. And kaboom. This bullshit. Right. So, and then, where do we go here? Oops, I got to go over to this screen. Sorry. Then we go over here, him bitching about people calling him out for his bullshit on Twitter, like a grown-up. And then disaster hits again. Oh, no. And then Kamala Harris responds by actually saying exactly what everyone else in the administration is saying, but that's supposed to prove a point that she's on a talking point. And then more disaster awaits. More disaster. Severe costs. Look at him yelling. Look at her right behind him, telling him what to yell, I guess. This is the idea. She's whispering in his ear. This is how they build graphics at Fox, by the way. None of this benefits America in any way. Boy, but not doing anything and letting Putin take Ukraine sure does benefit him in a big way. We are oh, look at this. We are pushing Russia into the arms of China. Oh, dear. And do we have a Facebooker in here that says that Trump economy was great, lowest food prices, jobs are at the higher minimum wage? That's not true. Electrical bills the highest I've ever seen in the home in the last 47 years. That's that's due to his response to COVID. 350 months of the line of the dark stuff for the TV on cable. Your cable bill? Jesus Christ, first world problems. President's wasted millions and billions of dollars on whatnot for the American citizens who are all my tax-paying dollars going to the illegal immigrants. Oh, I never got a stimulus check from the... Why not? You should have. Oh, I see, because you're not actually really who you say you are. Good times. What a weird, long diatribe. Yeah, so what you're seeing here is basically a psyop of cartoon like frames with this like messaging underneath, and him basically saying, yeah, you know what? Fuck democracy. Yep. Into the arms of China. That's what's happening. It couldn't be that Russia is a wilting country because of who runs it, that has been putting a stranglehold on the Russian people for decades because they've got no ideas. It's not them. It's not their lack of initiative and shit like that, and the fact that they're just what a great place to like rip off all of my fellow Russians. It's not because of that. It's because America, in 2008, NATO sent a note to Ukraine, if you like me, check this box. And now because Russia is boiling inside, because their inflation, their gas prices, their social unrest is worse than ours, and so is China's. So both of them are saber-rattling stuff that apparently the populace will like. We will take back Ukraine. We're going to take back Taiwan. It's the same shit. Boring. And this asshole thinks that the big story is that we're going to get in trouble. Oh no. We're going to get in big trouble. Hold on. You're watching Hal Sparks Megaworldwide. I'm live in a hotel right now, operating on my laptop and an iPad, which I have the chat and the clips on. So you're welcome to my eye line. And I'll be doing my radio show at the regular time tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, on WCPT Radio in Chicago. And, of course, live streaming here at infotainmentwars.com and at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks, a.k.a. fwank.com, FWANQ.com. Good times. There's a reset. Don't forget to like and subscribe, give a thumbs up. And to all the trolls and maggots, thanks for being here. Without you, we wouldn't have nearly the reach that we're getting. And I'm sorry that you're watching your Messiah fade so harshly. The part where oh man, it was beautiful. When where is it? It was Aaron Rupar had this today. I saw a piece of it. He called in because he can't figure out, Trump can't figure out Zoom. I guess it's I don't know if it's the internet at Mar-a-Lago sucks or if he's just paranoid. But Trump was on, he called in, here it is. Let me try and bring this guy up. We'll go to this one. Does this come back up? Yeah, there we go. They always have him phone in so he can just talk on his on this. So here you go.
You know, you keep banging your head against the wall. Why would you expect a different result?
So we would have had the wall completed in 3 weeks. It was largely completed. We did.
Yeah, Sean, he wasn't listening to you. He just heard the word wall and went, "Wall, I say wall part now."
Vaccines and monoclonal antibodies that...
Hold on, wait.
You left office with 3 vaccines and monoclonal antibodies that you had created, which to this day I think is the best therapeutic. I advise people to talk to their doctors.
Yeah, he didn't create any of those things. And the monoclonal antibodies don't work on Omicron. So if you're in the hospital with Omicron, they don't seem to help. Yeah. Oh, this is Trump on where Biden's COVID strategy went wrong, I see. Here we go.
Cognitively, because that question was raised about you, and I've been around you long enough to know that's not a problem for you at all.
Well, I went and took a test, and as Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's great guy, now he's a congressman, and they love him in Texas, but he said he aced it, and I don't think he ever saw anyone ace it. And I immediately said, because they started passing the false narrative.
Do you believe
that? Honestly, is that what a healthy person does? I mean, granted, he's a mess, but
You wouldn't have had inflation.
Hold on.
These things would have happened. You wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had Ukraine problems with Russia. It was all working out. Everything was fine. I got a
Yeah, everything was fine. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dead Americans because he was like, I don't know. It's not a big deal. Is it a big deal? Is it really a big deal? Trump's his first year accomplishments: resurgence of U.S. economy, the American spirit. Yeah, that's patriotism for you. You know what I mean? Nothing says you're patriotic about your country than if it was not for the king, the land would die. The land and the king are one. Stock market records. Yeah, there's been a bunch of those since he left. Wealth creation. Well, for a narrow few, sure. Deregulation, rolling back the militant administrative state. I mean, he was this close to being pro-lead paint. Trump claims windmills are...
thing the Hulks put up all over the place where that are noisy, they're killing the birds. I mean, I don't get the environmentalist, and it's a very expensive form, probably the most expensive form of energy.
Yeah, it's probably the most expensive. I mean, never mind the fact that if they fall over, they don't kill all the wildlife in an area the way, say, an oil spill would. Nobody, you ever see anybody around windmills cleaning grease off of a penguin? This is
talk to Kash Patel. I've asked you this question before, and that is, did you authorize, as required by law, the calling up of up to 20,000 National Guard troops on January the 4th, and maybe even other occasions, in the lead up to what everybody knew would be a big rally? And every big rally, I guess you always have bad actors, but on the heels of the rioting, 574 riots in the summer of 2020 that killed dozens, injured thousands of cops, and caused billions in property damage. Did you authorize calling up the Guard? And then it became, the chain of command went to Nancy Pelosi and to the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser. Did you, as required by law, authorize that?
100%, and attested to by many people, and they turned it down. Nancy Pelosi turned it down. I guess they both did, but Nancy Pelosi turned it down, and she's in charge of the Capitol. So they...
Yeah, and again, what an odd defense. How could she have not known that my supporters would attack the Capitol? Of course they would. You don't think that the fact that, like, you could have endangered a bunch of those National Guard people's lives just because Trump would have stood there and gone, look what she's done. She's turned your place into a fortress. She's surrounded it with jack troops. Go get them. Meanwhile, it's also hand-picked groups. And she's like, I'm not having hand-picked National Guard troops that you like and you think are loyalists to you amassing on the edge of town, dumb fuck. This ain't my first rodeo.
and with a lot less than 20,000 troops also. The fact is, I knew it was going to be a massive rally because this was a protest rally against the election, which they considered to be totally rigged. They were right. And this was a protest against the election. And I was told by so many people, oh, we're going down on the 6th, we're going down. And that's why I met with the top people in military and other places. And I said, I think this is going to be a lot of people coming down. I can tell you, I believe it was the biggest crowd I've ever spoken to. It was massive. I'm not talking about the people that walked down to the Capitol. I'm talking about the people that we were watching.
At the rally.
But I felt that was going to happen at the rally, or whatever you want to call it, at the people listening to the speeches, for a lot of different people. And they were also making speeches the night before. And there was a lot of love there. Believe me, there was a lot of love and a lot of
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just put a condom on the Capitol.
friendship and people that love our country. These are
You know, they should have just lubed the steps. It probably would have stopped some of the violence.
great people. And I felt
Actually, technically, that might have.
it was going to be a very big crowd. And I said, I think we should have 10,000. And Kash Patel, who's a terrific guy, said, maybe it should be 20. I said, maybe it should be 20. He remembers me saying 10 to 20. But I wanted to have
It doesn't sound like he's going on Hannity to try to get his story straight or anything.
soldiers and I would have soldiers and or National Guard.
Soldiers and or National... there we have it. He wanted soldiers, which he thought he had control over, not like the National Guard, on the scene so that he could basically go sick 'em.
And Nancy Pelosi turned it down. And
Yeah, I don't know why she wouldn't want a mix of soldiers and National Guard from, Republican states that on a situation where you were coordinating with militias and people like the Oath Keepers. I can't imagine why she would be she wouldn't be interested in that. Fucking hell. Oh, dear God. This is what happens when I scroll. We can't scroll like this. It's not a good idea. Sorry. All right. That brings us to the end of the show. It's 6 o'clock, so I've done a full 2 hours. I've done my piece, and hopefully tomorrow's show will be easier to pull off because I now have power, which is very good. And so thank you guys for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for liking, subscribing, supporting the show. Tomorrow radio show. I've got a show tonight, 8 o'clock, Cobb's. 2 tomorrow, 7:30 and 9:45 at Cobb's. And then I will be back in Vegas on Sunday, do the regular show on Monday. And then Wednesday, I will be going into LA probably after the morning show. I'll drive and do the afternoon show there if I can wedge that in. And or leave late Tuesday night and do the show bagged out on Wednesday. Because Thursday night, Nerd Halen is at Yamava Indian Casino in Riverside outside of LA, which is a great place. We're doing 2 sets there. One of them is our warm-up set for the cruise. Our second set of the night will be the set we're doing for the cruise, the Monsters of Rock cruise, which leaves on February 8th. And then February 1st, we'll be back at the Whiskey for the Eddie Van Halen tribute. We'll be doing 2 songs then. Rumor has it that Michael Anthony might be able to be there. Michael Starr from Steel Panther, I think, is going to be singing some stuff because he was in Atomic Punks, the best and most well-known Van Halen tribute band until we came along. So we may be doing some Nerd Hagar at that thing. We're going to find out soon. We're very excited about the idea. And we're always, spicing up the set. So big weeks coming up. I will also, on the cruise, be doing my regular shows as best I can from my room. If the internet, it's an investment, but I'm planning on doing it. So wish me luck. If I can do it above deck and have people come over, maybe that'll be fun. I don't doubt that there are some surprisingly right-wing rockers out there in the world, so I might get some pushback. That'd be fun. It'd be a great conversation to have, although I don't want to dig a hole they end up falling into. That's not the point. So either way, I appreciate you guys being with me today. I will see you again soon. There is no way to get out of this show. I don't have my ending graphics like I normally do. So I'm just going to sign off, and I will see you guys later. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And I will see you guys tomorrow for the radio show. Bye, everybody. Take care. See you.